Today, we're diving into a story that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. It's about how an AI that learned to listen to birds in a forest somehow ended up solving mysteries in the deepest parts of the ocean. It's a really cool tale of unexpected connections that's changing how we explore our own planet. So let's just start with a riddle. What could bird songs and whale calls possibly have in common? I mean, think about it. One happens in the air, the other deep underwater. They seem like complete opposites, right? Well, the answer is actually unlocking a revolutionary new way to listen to the Earth. To get there, we first have to understand the challenge. Our oceans, they're a world of mysteries. For scientists, most of this world is completely invisible. So they have to rely on listening to understand the patterns of marine life. The ocean is, at its core, a world of sound. And that soundscape is constantly surprising us. Take the biotwang, for example. For years, scientists heard this really strange noise and were totally baffled. It was only recently they figured out it's the call of the elusive bride's whale. It's just a perfect example of how many discoveries are still out there, just waiting to be heard. So how on earth can we keep up with this pace of discovery? Well, that brings us to the hero of our story. And trust me, it's a very unlikely one. An AI detective that was trained for the forest but is now exploring the sea. Let me introduce you to Perch 2.0. It's what's called a bioacoustics foundation model, which I know sounds super technical, but it's just a fancy way of saying it's a massive AI that has been trained to be an expert listener, able to identify all sorts of animal sounds with incredible precision. But here's the part that is just absolutely wild. The twist? Perch 2.0 was trained almost exclusively on bird calls and other land-based sounds. It had zero underwater audio in its training data. So how could an AI that only knows a robin's chirp possibly understand a whale's call? To solve that puzzle, we need to understand the technology behind this strange new skill. It's a process of learning how to re-listen. The secret sauce here is a powerful AI concept called transfer learning. The best analogy is learning an instrument. If you know how to play the piano, you can probably pick up the organ much, much faster. You aren't starting from scratch, right? You're transferring your knowledge of keyboards and music theory to a new but related task. That's exactly what the AI is doing. So here's how it works in practice. First, the big pre-trained model, our bird expert, Perch 2.0, listens to new audio and creates a compact sound signature for it. You can think of it like a digital fingerprint for a sound. These are called embeddings. Then, those simple fingerprints are fed into a much smaller, simpler model called a classifier. And here's the magic. Researchers only need to train that final tiny step, which saves an enormous amount of time and computer power. Okay, so that's the theory. Sounds cool, right? But did this bird-trained AI actually pass the underwater test? Let's take a look at the surprising results. And researchers didn't make it easy. They tested Perch on 3 very different and very difficult datasets. They asked it to tell apart different species of giant baleen whales, to identify sounds on a super noisy coral reef, and, get this, to even distinguish between different subpopulations or ecotypes of killer whales based on their calls alone. The results were honestly stunning. Across the board, Perch 2.0 was consistently either the top or second best performing model. An AI with zero ocean experience was outperforming or at least matching models that were specifically designed for underwater sound. And we can actually see why it worked so well by looking at how the AI hears the subtle differences in killer whale calls. You see, other models, they tend to just jumble the sounds together into this messy cloud. But Perch 2.0, it neatly separates each killer whale ecotype into its own distinct cluster. It's hearing a level of detail that other models are completely missing. This brings us to the big reveal. We've seen that it works, but we still need to know why. Why can an AI trained on birds understand whales? Let's break down the 3 key reasons. So it turns out there are 3 key reasons this worked. First, generalization. Because the model was trained on so much data, it didn't just learn what a specific bird sounds like. It learned the fundamental physics of sound itself. Second, and this is my favorite part, is what researchers call the bittern lesson. The AI was forced to learn how to tell the difference between the incredibly similar coos of 14 different species of doves. This basically gave it a kind of super hearing for tiny details, a skill that's perfectly suited for telling apart whale calls. And finally, shared physics.
It turns out that the ways birds and marine mammals produce sound by forcing air through passages are surprisingly similar, creating sound patterns the AI could recognize.
So, a weird idea works for some pretty fascinating reasons. But what's the big picture here? What does this all mean for the future of science and our ability to decode the deep? Let's ask the critical question. Why does this matter for the scientists on the front lines, the ones trying to protect and understand our oceans? What is the real-world impact? The answer is a total game changer. A couple of hours. Yep, you heard that right. A task that used to take researchers weeks or even months of painstaking work, building a brand new classifier for a new sound, can now be done in a single afternoon. And look, this is about more than just speed. It's about agility. This approach means science can finally keep up with the pace of discovery. When a new sound, like the biotwang, is identified, scientists can almost immediately build a tool to track it across thousands of hours of audio. That unlocks insights at a scale that was just previously unimaginable. And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought. We've just explored an incredible hidden connection between two worlds that seem to have nothing in common. So the question is, if an AI trained on birds can help us understand whales, what other unbelievable connections are out there just waiting to be discovered?